He criticized the lack of coverage of the neo-Nazi groups in the Ukraine that have legitimately attacked Russian-speaking Ukrainians in Donetsk and Luhansk, which are the regions that Putin went and annexed, along with the Crimea, back under Russian control. Now, you know, you hear these reports and you say to yourself, oh, typical Russian propaganda. Viganó is not a Russian propagandist. He's calling out the New World Order. And he warned about the vaccine shenanigans. And he is saying blatantly, by the way, our guy with the Wealth Report from Newsmax that we listen to is pretty sharp.
Yeah.
He says his main concern now is that the economists and the wealthy class, the banker class, see that the global economy is already, in other words, with the shutdown, we already had so many nations that were debt over GDP, meaning they had more debt than they had productivity.
Of course.
That the banking system can no longer sustain. In other words, the Ponzi scheme is ending, and that the house of cards is about to come down. And what he's concerned about is that the world order, bankers are looking to provoke a war for the purpose of forcing a reset, and that reset will be with the devalued dollar, the digital currency, and this new global order exercising unprecedented powers over nations.
100%.
And this is what Viganó's warning about.
Yeah.
This is what he's saying. Sovereign nations. He said, please, heal the wound with Russia. He said, do trade with, mention this, talking like a real prophet. Yeah. He says, build a trade relationship with Russia. Invite them in. Don't isolate them. And allow them to be part of the global trade game so that they can get some wins themselves. Don't push them away, but draw them in like we said we were going to do with China, and they decided to devour us.
Yeah.
And he said, bring them in and don't go off on a war with them, but bring them in. And you can beat, because the world organization, this like the World Health Organization and the CBD and the European Union and the United Nations, it's all about globalist and global elites controlling and rewriting the world.
Yeah.
And these guys are nationalists. They want their countries. They want their countries to succeed. And in that sense, Bolsonaro refused to come against Putin. Do you know why? In their private conversation, they both don't like the woke progressive United States any more than I do. And they'd rather support each other. They see the United States as an exporter of unhealthy viruses.
Sure.
And so sovereign nations, Viganó is saying, meaning your culture, your faith, and your borders, and your customs and your traditions, you should be able to keep them. You know, the European Union is punishing Hungary and Poland right now. The two countries bringing in all the refugees, they're cutting off their finances. Do you know why? Because they will not sign off on transgender policies for families. And so because they're holding to their strong Catholic background, unless they bow the knee to the woke ideology, they will be economically punished. This is the evil of the European Union. This is what Putin is putting a nail into the tire of.
Fascinating. Well, I'm
I know
just
that's a
taking it
different
all
perspective than what you're going to be hearing on most newscasts. I'm not saying Putin is a good guy. I'm saying what he's doing is horrendous.
I know, that's right.
And I've got pastor friends of mine that are ready to put their hair on fire going, Lance, the Ukrainian people are suffering. Yes, they are. And they're suffering under Ukrainian leadership as well.
You're like moving at a different speed than me today. I'm like taking it in. It's because we got you that coffee right before we got on air.
Yeah. By the way, what kind of coffee was that?
Oh, I don't want to plug him because I don't know if we're going to plug. I wouldn't plug him. It's a local coffee place.
It's a local coffee called Double Dutch. And it's really good.
So, but here's what I'm saying. Like, that's where I cringe a little bit because I don't think there's any good guys. I feel, and I hear what you're saying. He's throwing a wrench in. I think the same way Trump did. I don't think Trump was predicted. I think it slowed this whole agenda down that they have. But where I do agree 110% and what we've been saying since the middle of last year, honestly, is there is a financial reset coming. And I think that, like to your point, so many countries are over leveraged, in debt. And I said this the other week, I almost feel like this whole war is just a contrived situation to accelerate the economic collapse so that we can wipe the books clean, start over and restart with a whole like different economic zones almost. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of it, Lance. And to your point with national sovereignty, that's what we're potentially losing here. And what you give away when you sign up for the EU, you give that away, and you see it more and more in those, like the policies you outlined. It's like, no, make the confession, say the thing, or you're going to be canceled, And the idea, I really feel like there needs to be politicians who are going to take on this issue of separating corporations and state, because so many of these large globalist companies act on behalf of American citizens. Like, we're pulling out of Russia. We're not going to do business here. We're canceling this. We're canceling that. We're going to pull out of this conservative area. You know what I mean? It's like, there's all sorts of things where like corporations are being weaponized against sovereign nation states, and no one elected those people. No one signed off on that.
And it's dummy Thomas Friedman of the New York Times is writing a whole opinion piece. I mean, just running around doing victory laps and high fives because corporate wokeism now has the power to chastise and whip any nation into conformity with woke values. And he thinks that's a triumph of the 21st century.
I don't. I think it's incredibly risky. To your point, and to what Viganó is saying, is don't isolate. Do you know who isolates? The devil. If the devil can get you isolated, like away from anybody and everybody, he has the ability to really speak to you and to confuse you. And so when you have somebody that's like a Putin, or you have some of these other people and you're trying to cancel them like that, how do people see this working out? I mean, if we don't try to move towards, peace
Blessed are the
talks.
peace. And we should take a moment now. I really need to do this, folks. I really need to do this, but we can't do it today.
Why? You've been really intense today. I think you're going to have to land the plane in a positive area.
I'm going to land the plane. Listen, I have to be intense in order to push past the lethargy and the noise that is in the marketplace. People get lazy and they just believe what they're told, and then they become, they actually become addicted to what they believe, and what they believe is a lie. I have to push hard to challenge the narrative because Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, they're thumping the table about bad Putin, go to war and help good old Ukraine, which is kind of like the victim here. And I'm saying the people in Ukraine are a victim, but the nation is corrupt. And you ought to see the bigger game is being played here. And I don't like being lied to, and I don't like being controlled. And I hate it when the devil deceives and God's prophets don't call it out. That's why I'm emotional about this. But I will say something that I often think about this these days. What is the kingdom solution? In other words, if we were to say, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, what is the kingdom solution? I'll tell you what the kingdom solution would be. Let Putin now have the regions to the east that have been abused by Ukrainian influence and the Crimea. Go ahead, let him have them because they actually prefer Russian rulership anyway. Let there be a commitment not to join and weaponize the nation with NATO. Let's remove the bio labs, period, and have them jointly monitored with Russian as well as Ukrainian presence to see what kind of shenanigans are being cooked up in the Wuhans of Ukraine. And let there be a restoration of peace and a rebuilding, and without recrimination. Let's heal this situation, because I don't think it serves the best interests of the United States or the world to unify Iran and Russia and China in a different economy against the West. Because right now, the West isn't even the friend of a sovereign, free America.
Are you thinking about clinking away? Don't click away. The whole podcast is over on lancewallnell.com/podcast. Go download the whole thing. Go there. They're there every day. The full uncensored truth just for you. Catch you over there.